Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk a quick presentation about rapid prototyping. Wholly different than what's going on at HealthWise in that this is basically from like 0 to, let's go 75% of an app. So sort of the early stages of startup from nothing to something very different than what you guys are working on, restructuring things real time in a really serious, functioning, successful business here at HealthWise. So thanks, Chris, for your presentation. That was really great. I'm Wendy Fox. I've been working in tech for a really long time. Lots of friendly faces in this room. My current day job is at Boise State University, which is a little bit different than what I usually do every day in my tech world historically. I handle digital communications, so that means I lead the university's social media communications. So all of our different social platforms, I handle digital landing pages. So if you go to boisestate.edu, you'll see a big banner and it takes you to landing pages, and I sort of work with departments across the university to help them figure out their social sharing, make it better, develop their pages to be as good as they can. We have like 75,000 web pages at Boise State. It's crazy. David knows a little bit about how crazy our structure is. He works in OIT. I'm just going to call you out here. Lots of friends here in the audience. I'm also a volunteer at Radio Boise. I do lots of work for them, predominantly as a DJ. I have a show actually tonight at 5 o'clock. So if you are listening to the radio around that time, you can tune in. Carl's a DJ, Chris is a DJ. There's lots of cool people around town that are DJs, and we all do that on a volunteer basis. I also do tons of stuff. I manage their website. I early helped with the social, all kinds of stuff. Now I'm working on this freelance project because I just don't have enough things to do. I'm this kind of person that I just, like 6 months ago, some friends were like, we're doing this startup, and I'm like, I'm in. So I've been trying to do this in the side, and I've been not sleeping very much, and it's been pretty cool. But I've had the opportunity to work with some really amazing local startups and some tech companies, and it's been a really great experience. And Boise is really small, and you get to know each other, and things just keep turning. So today, what we're going to talk about: 3 wins, how we're building a software startup, what our prototype workflow looks like 37 days later, which is basically when we started from our initial iteration to our first client MVP, and then some learning from that. So 3 recent wins of mine. Just to kind of get us started out on a funny note, I was asked to teach at the Osher Institute earlier in 2015 in September, and I was teaching them about social media. So the Osher Institute is a place where people can go for continued learning. So it's retired people over the age of 55 that wanted to learn about social media, and I got to teach them in our 3rd class. One of the attendees asked, "What is a meme?" So I felt like I had hit it out of the ballpark with this description, with describing the nene. So do you guys know about the whip and the nene? Right, this thing is just taking off. It was just this funny thing. I was telling the older people about it. I played this video so they could learn how to do the dance, and they're all looking at me like, wow. But then less than a week later, Hillary Clinton was on the Ellen DeGeneres show doing the whip and the nene. So I'm like, nailed it. Got the meme description down pretty well. I was also ahead of the curve on this emoji. In May of 2015, I was asked to participate in this art project at Sorrell's Place here in town, where everyone was given blank sheets of Strinky Dinks. And since I'm an internet person, I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? So I came up with these emojis and just put them in a frame. And I titled my piece, I cried so hard, I laughed so hard, I cried tacos, because I love both of these things. And then in November, the Oxford Dictionary chose that particular emoji as the word of the year. So I'm like, got an emoji, I'm on track. And then in November, I got together with my gang, and we're starting up this company called Forsta. So everybody along the top on the left is Pat Sewell. He was the original founder of Cradlepoint Technologies and a whole bunch of other things. He's the original sort of agitator to get us all together. Jen Niss, Jeff Butters, and we all worked at Cradlepoint together with Pat. Jeff Butters was employee number 1 at Cradlepoint. So from the very beginning, from the very ground up, he was the guy, and now he's on our team at Forsta, and I'm super excited about it. Also, Taylor Bell, John Lewis, and Ryan Canning. These 7 people are currently our startup foundation team. So what is it like to build a software startup? First, you start with the mark and sort of describing what it is. So we named it Forsta. That is the word Finnish for first. It's a connected fitness startup building state-of-the-art websites with apps using React and React Native, along with other cool tooling and tech. We use the newest technologies to create better athletic experiences. So why do we come to this place? We have some experts in our team that have done a lot of work with high school athletes, particularly cross country. And as we started looking at it, we're like, there is this crazy market here. They use paper, they have websites that are horrible, they all are piecing these things together. And especially in high school athletics, there's lots and lots of growth potential there for our tools. Lots of people that need to get connected with each other and be talking to each other and do it in a better, more modern way. So this is our big, like 1,000-foot speech, our mission statement. We simplify and modernize the way athletes, coaches, parents, student administrators, and race officials manage social engagement, event registration, training, activity, and communication. It's a lot of words. We're active in high school athletics programs and corporate wellness programs throughout fitness apps and hardware for any mobile platform. Forsta connects users beyond the app and into communities. And that's what we're hoping to build in the long run, is this connected space where people are, we all know we work out individually, but we actually do things better when we're sort of held accountable with each other. So we're trying to create a social space around tracking and event management and connected fitness apps or connected wearables and stuff. So, but that's a lot of things, and that's a lot of things to smash into an MVP for a client. So we simplified that down. More stuff about our stuff. We got a big database. We've got some track and engineering team. We've got lots of smart people behind the scenes. Pat's been at this for a long time. He's built and raised a lot of money and has made a lot of money. So I'm like, I want to be on that team. This is our platform stack. Generally, how we're going to put this all together. Generally in the middle, we're going to be hosting on Amazon. We're using Heroku as the backend. We're using document management with DocuStripe or DocuSign and Stripe. We're going to engage lots of social stuff. Our foundation is React. We're using Google Material as the foundation of the structure of the application. It's going to be pretty great. These are 4 of our potential user types. So as you see, there's just lots and lots of information about our different users. We ended up settling on one, focusing on one for MVP, just coaches. So we just decided to narrow it in, get it done, focus on the first user group that's actually going to use the app, coaches. So to get started, we needed to figure out how to build the thing. So we knew we were going to work in Material, and if you're familiar with Google Material, Google has put together years and years of experience to come up with a structure on how you basically build the framework of a house. It's like a builder thinking, oh, I need a 2x4 and I need this kind of hinge and I need, this long of a nail. Google Material provides a lot of that stuff for you if you're building both apps and websites, because the idea of it is it's a responsive experience across all platforms. But you have to learn it. It's like a language. It's like the div XML. We use Google Apps as our home base, as you saw. I just logged in. Everything's in Google Apps because we're all distributed. Particularly me, I'm working in really weird hours, so it's all cool to just have these things be in the cloud. And we know we're using React and React Native, which are coming from Facebook in a way. There are structures that come from Facebook. They're these really rapid technologies that they structure data in a different way behind the scenes on the development side. It's things that are very modular. They're not dependent connections. The dev team would have to explain this a little bit better, but essentially what this means is there's buckets of code and they're independent from each other. So there's less dependencies on those buckets of code. So you can spin up really fast. The back end of that is parse, and that does this really magic thing, which in some ways has kind of bitten us in the butt, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Material is Material provides a coherent framework, testing guidelines, and for gaining efficiencies in learning by using expected established patterns. So when you log into Google, when you log into Drive, when you use anything Google, you are experiencing Google Material. And lots of people are picking this up. You'll start seeing it everywhere. I've been opening up, refreshing apps and be like, oh my gosh, there it is again. And it's just using these same structures. I don't know if you guys get these slides later. I don't know, but there's links in here. You can learn more about it there. This is what it looks like on the spec. You can just type in Google Material on the web too as well. It's all there for you. So my favorite part is this stuff. This is what I deal with a lot, these components. So essentially when you're thinking about what's an app, you're like, it's mostly these components. It's a card, they call cards. Cards are like square items that things happen on them. But all kinds of other things, they're giving you the basic structure for building very, very quickly in Google Material. But we didn't know what our design foundation was and what our prototyping tool was. So we had a lot of investigation about how we were going to do this. So one of my teammates then we started, since we're doing IA, so this was basically our structure of our IA. This was in a Google document. As you might imagine, going from 0 to something, you're trying to figure out what the information is going to go where, what's the navigation, what are the keywords, how are we going to build context within the app. So we used Google Drive, just a simple doc, to just keep modifying this over time. So like as we kept building, we'd learn, okay, this needs to be this navigation. So we just keep revising this document. It became like our home base for knowing how we were going to structure the IA. And then we came across Draw. So my teammate Jen, she had been working at Cradlepoint. They had this really bad problem where they needed to just do diagrams, and they were also using Google Drive. This is a free Google Chrome plugin. It's really awesome. And she just did basic state diagrams. So like this with an arrow to this thing. But we found that this is actually a tool that you can use to make very rapid UX, really rough UX for both us and for the developers to get kind of synced up on the same page. So negatives about it is that it is a cloud-based tool, and because it's using these objects and it's very complex, in a way, like I have no idea how this thing works. Lots of these things that are like state-based objects, because they're like moving around in the cloud and I'm moving them, and it's weird. Like I'm like, how does this work? I don't know. I kind of do know, but it's sort of magic. But things move around really randomly. So if you use paste, like the thing we know, like copy and paste, sometimes in Draw, like you'll copy something and it'll be like, I don't know, what feels like a mile up at the top of the page, or in very different places. I use a lot of duplicate. Duplicate is the way to make it work here. But it's also not available on phones. So if you're out running around and somebody's like, can you review this? And you're like, not on your phone. So it has to be on a laptop. So this is how we started it. So this is basically just a basic flow diagram. Login, you go to here, you create account, it's sort of the basic flow using Draw. This is what Draw is really meant for. It's how they advertise themselves. It's a free online diagramming tool for charts and process diagrams. But we realized down over here, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of tools, there's this thing that says more stickers. It's just way at the bottom. And then you look in the more shapes. You look in here, all the way at the bottom, material design, which I was like, wow, how cool. So it basically is giving you all of these little cheat sheets, all these little snippets to sort of rapidly prototype. So what we started to do is then blow these diagrams out. So we had this like rough idea of how the flow needed to go, and then we started turning them into things which are material based. Like this is a standard card with 2 different dialogues. And then we started fleshing it out a little bit more, like what the UX would look like. And then we kept getting more and more granular. So you can take Draw and using those framework, or using those little elements, and basically start kind of making really rough UX inside of this shared space. And the beautiful thing about this is I could bring this to a review meeting. We turn it up, I've only got like 45 minutes to be in this meeting. We pull it up, we're all reviewing it, and we can make live changes that everybody then can agree upon and see, because we're all sharing these files on our Google Drive. And as a designer, like I've had trouble with that before, where you're building things, you need to share with others, and it's really like it becomes very centralized on your machine or in a weird space. So you need to like have a lot of shared knowledge this way. So beyond that, there's all kinds of things. So when you do pull up these things, pull up the more shapes, it gives you all sorts of little starters. So these are all little cards. So these are all based in the material design framework, and you just pull them over and you start editing. So we decided, so we really did that. This took probably 15 days for us to really start taking from that initial flow diagram into a really rough UX. It has revision history, which is really awesome. So you can always go backwards in case you lose something. And this is where we ended up stopping. So on January 27th, 10 a.m., that was the last change we committed to our file. And that's sort of where we took that and pivoted into an actual design tool. I was trying to figure out which design tool I wanted to use. Keynote's pretty good for this. It's kind of cool. It's like it's a prototyping system that lots of people use. It's Mac-based mostly, but I couldn't figure out how that would connect to it. It's just really quick to use. Illustrator and Photoshop connect to things, and I know them the best probably in terms of being a designer. But we ended up settling on Sketch. Actually, Lauren, who's right here in the front, he and I worked at Soapbox together, Creative Soapbox, and he introduced me to Sketch and how amazing it is. Super great. Why Sketch? It's the UX Pro solution, and that's what they claim on their website, and it really is true. It's a fast manipulation of your elements. It's really easy to learn. You can export assets, and so as a designer, it's cool. You can you just easily huck the stuff over to the development team, and they have all the stuff they need. It has this toolbox extensions, which I'll show you in a second, and it has material cheat sheets. It's for Mac only though, so if you're a PC user, you can't use it. And weirdly enough, they just have decided to not put their software in the App Store. So I think that's a decision based on the difficulty of being in the App Store, but just download it from their website. This is what Sketch looks like on the inside. This is the Google Sheets cheat sheet. They're called, this is called a sticker sheet. So again, like we saw in Draw.io, there's these elements that you can use that just help you quickly build your design. So you take okay, so I need this thing. This is called a modal bottom sheet. So when you click on something, and this comes up from the bottom, Google Material calls that a modal bottom sheet. So you can grab that and just put it in your design, and it's really a really fast way to build. This is what the toolbox looks like. So many developers are putting these little plugins together. So this is one of my favorite ones, the Material Design Color Palette. There's all kinds of things. You just stick it into Sketch and just run with it. It's great. This is what the Material Palette looks like. So Material has a very fixed color palette, which in a way is really helpful from a designer perspective. You just tell them what color to use, and on the back end, they just pick that color code, and it works in that color in that way across all platforms forever. This is what it looks like when you're actually developing it and building it. You build a design area based on the general framework of this shape of the device that you're building in. I decided to build this in a landscape tablet view, so I could kind of fake what it's going to look like on the desktop and what it's going to look like in a mobile environment in one, because I was only going to do one prototype. So we built out basically what you saw in the rough version, and then we're getting into a much more fine-grained space. What it does, considering IA, it does actually want you to label your groups in a nice way. So as you can see, this is everything folded up. Each of these screens is represented in one of these little folders. So you want to use good language, good naming conventions. Like this is an example of me being really bad about it. I just copied it, and so now in my prototype, it's called home screen plus activity plus timeline plus drawer copy. Like, what does that mean? That's not very good. But it's good to put them in a very sensible naming convention. This is what it ended up looking like in the long run. These are all of the views. It ended up being 47 different views to create this first MVP, which we thought, okay, for only the user type coaches, and we're focusing on just registration because we knew we had this one piece that we needed to put our arms around. So we're not necessarily technically focusing at this point on what the wearable stuff looks like, what the learning stuff looks like, but how are we going to get this one piece done? So we had lots and lots of meetings, some with and without drinks, countless pages of notes. As any of you have ever, if you've ever started up a new project, you talk and talk and talk, and sometimes you're just you just got to keep focused on what you're actually trying to do. We did build 12 user personas, too many. So we ended up picking one because this was much easier for an MVP. We had 7 2-week sprints, and currently we have 124 items in our backlog. We made a prototype. We made it with Invision. Invision, I just realized, was a sponsor of this event, but it's actually a really great tool. And I didn't mean to be like, hey, it's Invision, but it's really great, and we use it, and I would recommend it. It's great. It syncs with your Sketch files. So what it allows you to do is put your files in the cloud somewhere. So any change you make in Sketch basically will eventually push up to your Invision prototype, which is really awesome, especially like the day that we were presenting this to our first client, I was making changes all through the night, and then even in the morning, 7 in the morning, I wasn't quite done yet, but they were meeting at 10. And so I was able to do these changes up until the time they landed, and boom, magic prototype. It's easy to use. It makes a clickable prototype. You can review in a browser, or you can have an in-app experience. So it allows you to download it on your phone or your tablet, and it's really great. It uses just clickable hotspots. Inside of there, you can do comments, and you can get feedback from people. And it uses a Kanban style project management process on the back end, which is, for those, if you've ever used that style, it's like in process, backlog, in process, in review, done. It's great. The only downside that I've seen of this product so far, which has happened when I was doing those last minute changes before we went to the client, the hotspots move a little randomly. So it's just something to be aware of. It still works. You can still see the hotspots, but like say you're like, you want to click on a button and you're trying to show the client like, oh, you click here. It actually might be just a little bit over to the left. And they just outline in these weird blue shapes and you click on it and it's good. I'm just going to do a very quick demo. I don't know if I can actually. I'm going to do it. So this is basically the experience of what you would get from like a review team or from a client. So like if you're presenting this, my mic turned upside down again. Probably not good to put it on my screen. So you can send them this link essentially, and they can do this review on their own. So it's really cool what's happening here. You can't really see it really well, but at the bottom it's telling you like, hey, explore this design. So you can sort of learn what's happening. It's displaying this inside of that tablet landscape view of which I had already set it up. And so you can set up your prototypes to show the type of mobile device that you wanted to display in. And then you just sort of click along. So here you're getting to the beginning. These are just click-throughs. You just click on it, and you actually can walk a client through your UX in a very, very quick and easy way. Like if you don't know where the button is, it tells you by showing you this. Oh, it's right there. Okay, that's the thing. And say we want to make comments. So right now on this page, there's 3 different comments. This gets us into comment mode. So what you can do if you're a review team or your client, you want to get some feedback from the client, they can just click in here and say like this is really weird, like blah, 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 blah. So you can actually send notifications to all the different people that are on the team. So I receive the notifications from everything, but you can actually select different team members to give that feedback to. As a receiver of that comment, or as a receiver of comments, you can see what people have to say about it. So Taylor's like, this seems more like a checkbox toggle than straight buttons, which he's actually right, because those 2 things are very dependent on each other. And a lot of times when you're moving really, really fast, you make some decisions and the developer will have a different idea and they actually solve that problem better for you. So in the long run, we're gonna fix this to be something else. But I can make a comment like, good catch. And then you just make a comment. I can actually, oops, I'm not logged in properly. You can mark this as resolved. So if this is something that you don't need to deal with anymore, you can just mark it, it's all good. I'm not actually logged in at the moment, so I can't show you like the back end how the Kanban style thing works. But imagine this is all in a big column. All the cards are in a big column. It says in progress. We can move them along. We can comment on them. We can move them along into done. And so from the back end side, I can really see where we're at in each of those 47 screens, which is part of our registration system, but will eventually be much, much larger. So we want to move those to resolution as quickly as we can. We're in the process right now of turning this actually into an app. So the development team is working on building this out, and it's going really well. So I'm super excited about that part of our work. So that was just a quick Invision. So you guys have that login. There's tons of like sample prototypes you can like click through and like figure out how this works. It's really great. It's super easy. Some big takeaways for me. The right tool set always allows you to run really fast. So if you figure out which tools you have and if they work for your team and if they work for you, we did it. And sometimes I'm like, how did I do this and have a job and have a radio show and have friends, it was kind of crazy how it all came together. And embracing bleeding edge tech has some risks. Parse is a piece of technology that it's really great. So how I understand it is that if you're a developer and you're building in React, you can use this tool. It's like a database tool, and it's also like, it does a lot of things for you. It's like if this and that, and a lot of other tools that it just does things for you. That's as good as I can describe it. But they have decided to actually eliminate public use of that. Facebook bought it. And so we have 1 year to conclude our use with Parse. So now our team is having to figure out how to build some of this backend database stuff, or find another tool that does some of things like that. But we have a year to figure that out. And our team and our community mean everything. So that because we have the small team and we know each other really well and we're having a great time working together, it's really making it a lot of fun. Something that I did not put in here on the demo is this little piece called Zeppelin. So if you are a designer and you are trying to turn some things and give it to a developer, you use this tool called Zeppelin. What this does is it takes your sketch file and it basically turns a tech spec, it turns it into a tech spec. So if you've ever had to deliver like graphics to the developers, I used to make things that like had crazy lines all over it, like this is this color and this is this font size and this is how much padding goes here. This tool does that for you. So it basically, you mouse over it and it says how big it is, what color it is, all that stuff. Lots of things that I went over, and I'm super glad I could do that in 20 minutes. Anybody have any questions? Awesome. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn at Wendy the Fox. Sure. So those are two different applications. So Sketch is the design tool. Sketch allows you to make the boxes, make it pixel perfect. It allows you to create all the screens. What happens in Invision is you don't do any design. So, and that's where part of this demo gets a little screwy, is I can't totally show you that part. But so you have a sketch file, you save it to the cloud, and then all of a sudden you've hooked it up to Invision. So Invision knows the folders, right? And it creates assets and it creates the, the archived file, and then it creates all of the framework that you'll see as the individual files. I must not have put it in here. Yeah, you can, but not to prototype. So like actually if you wanted to show clients your sketch file, it's going to end up looking, you're going to show them something like that looks like this, right? Individual screens, which is cool too, but it's not a click-through. So then you sync it up with Invision and you can create hotspots. It's like using the old school way of image mapping. Like remember when the old days when you make a website and you're like, oh, it's a picture and here's your navigation. It doesn't work like that anymore, but it does work like that in Invision. So you make these like hotspots on the pictures essentially, and then that becomes your click-through. And you can actually prototype a full nav, and like our prototype, the whole left side nav actually takes you all kinds of different places. You can create a template within Invision because that left nav is just a pain to do over and over again. So you can create a template that navigates to all of that structure. So anytime anyone's in that prototype and they click on the left nav, it behaves like a left nav, or like any sort of navigation that takes you where you expect it to go. So that's really cool. But so the two things work together, but very different products.
So I had a similar question about your process, Sketch versus Draw.
So Draw, what's cool about Draw is that it's really fast, it's really rapid, you could do it really, really quickly, but I was having trouble. My foundation is as a designer ultimately, and I kind of like to get real granular and get real perfect about it. If you didn't need to go to that next level design, if you didn't need to present this to a client and sort of wow them with the design, you could probably stay in Draw.
Okay, so your process, you don't do both of them. You ended up with Sketch.
Well, we do them. We actually do it all. So because we need it, and I think we're going to go back to it. Once you get out of Sketch, or once you get out of Draw, like so, I've got a lot of things which never. So I took these ideas and turned them into sketch files, and so there's a lot of like technical debt here. Like I haven't gone backwards and fixed this stuff yet. But this is going to be where the foundation is for our next iteration of how we're going to build out the next piece. So from here, we're going to go. So we've just tackled the registration piece. Now we need to tackle this wearable data visualization, which is going to be really cool dashboards and all kinds of thinking about how we pull in structured content and all that stuff, which is the next version of this. And so you could use Draw as your ultimate place if you never needed to show a client a final. But I am a little more, I want my client to see sort of what it really is going to look like, at least as close as I can get to the final. Because in development, it never is 100%, but it can get really close. So that's what this tool can really do for you. Anybody else? Lauren? Totally.
How do you feel about going over to iOS or Mac, bringing that language along?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It's like basically we're platform independent at this point. So we're thinking total responsive design, one language for all platforms. So hopefully that the experience will be the same. Our intent is to spin this up for the app stores, but one of the quick ways that people are learning these days is to spin stuff into the app store is to basically make a shell and you put responsive website in the middle of that, right? So that's how we're going to spin it up initially. Hopefully that works out really great. I'll let you know later. So the idea is that the material design language is just it's a way to think about design, and instead of having to think about all those things and try to create your own systems, Google's already done that. And then for my process and for what seems like to be a turning trend, people are really leveraging those ideas. So you go into this Google spec, and what's so cool is that there's so much to learn. It's like you have an idea, you're like, okay, cool, I need a dialog box that asks, that pops up, or I need, this kind of experience to happen, or I want this kind of navigation. Google has structures for you to sort of leverage. And then you can design around it. So that's what's kind of cool, is like you can break it. But we've been breaking them very intentionally. So I've been trying to do my best to not be like, oh yeah, we're gonna do Google design or Google material, and then just like do whatever I want. So I'm trying to hold tight to the spec, but when we do need to break it, we break it intentionally, and everybody kind of agrees upon that. So cool. Thanks, you guys. This was great.
That was awesome. Thanks, Wendy.
Great.
So right now we have 15 minutes for mingle and raffle. So how about we mingle and come back maybe 2 or 3 minutes before 10:45, and then we'll raffle. There's a couple of names we need to make sure we get into the raffle bucket. And so that's it. And also there's a bright orange sticky on your table. We have a session this afternoon that's table topics. So as you think about things you would like to talk about with your group, note it on there for later. So see you in a few minutes.